So here we are with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I'm going to read them with you and discuss them as we go through them. Hopefully you've got the PDF so that you can follow along, or you can just listen to myself reading them. So we shall begin. Emerald Tablet 1, the history of Thoth the Atlantean. I, Thoth the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king, magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amente, set down for the guidance of those that are to come after, these records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis. So Thoth explains to us who he is, the master of mysteries, and he is this as we shall discover as we go through the tablets, as he explains to us how he is given the keys to the mysteries, and also how he discovered what reality really is, the truth to life. All these are mysteries that we're all looking for the answers to. This mission that you have accepted to take will continue throughout your life. It will not end when this course ends. This course is to help you to go forth and work for yourself, because life will continue and new questions will arise, and you, being the truth seeker and spiritual warrior that you are, will take on these challenges. It's an adventure for you to take part in. And as Thoth was describing himself, being all these different roles that he takes on, the master of mysteries, keeper of records, he's a mighty king, he's a magician. We've got all these different roles in us that we have in our life, whether we're a parent, a school teacher, the job that you do. But when you're being a spiritual warrior, you are trying to discover the answers to these mysteries. You want to be the keeper of the record. You want to be the mighty spiritual king or warrior, the magician that's going to go on. And Thoth explains that he's going down to the halls of Amente, and these are going to be discussed more during these tablets so we can find out what they are, who built them and why. Well, next he's going to talk about why he's going there. He's going there to re-energize himself, to build himself, and we shall find out more in the next paragraph. So in the great city of Kior on the island of Undel, in a time far past, I began this incarnation. Not as the little men of the present age did the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die, but rather from aeon to aeon did they renew their life in the halls of Amente, where the river of life flows eternally onward. 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led into light, and as many times have I ascended from the darkness into the light, my strength empowered, renewed. So what Thoth is talking about here is that from aeon to aeon he is reincarnating, but not like us into another body. I was saying before about how when we reincarnate, our soul goes to a new body, a new version, a new lifestyle, where Thoth is reincarnating as himself, but he's not dying. He's going down to the halls of Amente to re-energize himself. He has learnt the secrets to eternal existence, to immortality. But to do this, one needs to submerge oneself back in the hall with the rivers of life, which is where the halls of Amente are. Next, he gives us a warning. Now for a time I descend, and the men of Chem shall know me no more. But in a time yet unborn will I rise again, mighty and potent, requiring an accounting of those left behind me. Then be aware, O men of Chem, if ye have falsely betrayed my teaching, for I shall cast ye down from your high estate into the darkness of the caves from whence you came. Betray not my secrets to the men of the north or the men of the south, lest my curse fall upon you. Remember and heed my words, for surely will I return again and require of thee that which ye guard. I, even from beyond time and from beyond death will I return, rewarding or punishing as ye have requited your trust. Chem, as I explained before, is Egypt. And he, Thoth, helped the first humans that were living there, the humans that were still living in caves and not living a civilized life as we know now, but he brought them a more civilized way of being, not necessarily how we live in this modern world. He talks about betraying his secrets. These emerald tablets are for those with ears to hear. And he warns us that if we misuse this information he's giving us, he will come back and punish. So we must not misuse this information. As with anything, it is not the matter itself that is good or bad, it is how we use it. Just like in the Star Wars movies, there is a force, but it is how you use it that determines whether you are a light Jedi or a dark Sith. And Thoth will know. He can tell what you do with this knowledge, and if you're able to use the keys to open the doors to the mysteries and discover the secrets, whether for good or bad. This is why there were mystery schools, so that those who applied the masters could tell who was worthy to become an initiate and use the teaching in the correct way and not misuse it for evil ways. Obviously, some probably did get through that teaching, managed to obscure their dark forces that were rumbling around inside them. Thoth continues, "Great were my people in the ancient days, great beyond the conception of the little people now around me, knowing the wisdom of old, seeking far within the heart of infinity, knowledge that belonged to earth's youth. Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light, who dwelt among us. Strong were we with the power drawn from the eternal fire. And of all these, greatest among the children of men was my father Thoth, keeper of the great temple, link between the children of light who dwelt within the temple and the races of men who inhabited the 10 islands. Mouthpiece after the free of the dweller of Unal, speaking to the kings with the voice that must be obeyed." Now the light is important, internal fire is important. But what is it? The eternal fire is continually burning. It carries on the light. It carries on the wisdom that we are looking for. It's never put out. But the dark forces want to put it out. And each of us has a flame inside us of this light. And it's how we want to use it. If we are seekers of truth, that flame will brighten and lighten, and we will find our paths. Now, Thoth tells us that there were 10 islands in the Atlantis area, and he originally came from the island of Ondal, living in the city of Kior. His father, Thoth, was the keeper of the great temple who worked with the children of light, those who were initiated into the religious practices of the day, and also was the link with the lay folk, those who lived on the island. And at the moment, I would say that we are the lay folk, and the emerald tablets are the link that we're getting in this teaching to hopefully bring us into the practices to become the spiritual warrior that we want to be. And Thoth continues about his childhood. "Grew I there from a child into manhood, being taught by my father the elder mysteries, until in time there grew within the fire of wisdom, until it burst into a consuming flame. Naught desired I but the attainment of wisdom, until on a great day the command came from the dweller of the temple that I be brought before him. Few there were among the children of men who had looked upon that mighty face and lived, for not as the sons of men are the children of light when they are not incarnate in a physical body." Now for us, we would love it if the dweller of the temple came and called us forward, because he could see that we were willing to learn about the fire of wisdom. Instead, we're being given these books and being shown that we can find this way. Times have changed from the past. Times are different, and spiritual warriors are needed. "Chosen was I from the sons of men, taught by the dweller so that his purposes might be fulfilled, purposes yet unborn in the womb of time. Long ages I dwelt in the temple, learning ever and yet ever more wisdom, until I too approached the light emitted from the great fire. Taught me he the path to Amente, the underworld where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life and the lords of death, receiving as my gift the key of life. Free was I of the halls of Amente, bound not by death to the circle of life, Far to the stars I journeyed until space and time became as naught. Then, having drunk deep of the cup of wisdom, I looked into the hearts of men, and there found I greater mysteries and was glad. For only in the search for truth could my soul be stilled, and the flame within be quenched. Thoth was chosen. In the modern world there is no dweller to call us. The dweller is inside, he or she, depending on your gender. The dweller sits on the threshold awaiting your attention. When one becomes a true truth seeker with the desire to know, not just a passing interest, but a true need to seek truth, then that dweller within you will lead you to places, people, books, and more as you go along your path. Answers will appear, knowledge will come forth to you, and if you recognize it, you can turn it into wisdom. And this is one of the important things about this path. One can gain knowledge, but the balance comes when you turn this knowledge into wisdom, when you learn how to use the knowledge wisely. As Thoth says, he drank deep from the cup of wisdom, and that is what truth seekers should be doing so that the soul can be stilled. But who is this great king of might that Thoth encounters when he goes down to Amente? There are also the lords of life and the lords of death. These lords teach Thoth what he needs to know, and we shall come across them again in more of the tablets. They offer him eternal life as a reward for his studies. Be great to live forever, or would it? Continuing with the Emerald Tablet. Down through the ages I lived, seeing those around me taste of the cup of death and return again in the light of life. Gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by spawn of a lower star. And so Thoth sees people born, die and reincarnate again, the ever ongoing circle for those who do not develop their soul to its full potential, for those who do not master the mystical ways but live life as most people do, with no concern to become more spiritually aware, more soulful. And the trap is that when this happens and one continues life after life, not improving oneself, not following this kind of lifestyle to become enlightened, then the spawn of a lower star can come for you. Thoth continues. In obedience to the law, the word of the master grew into flower. Downward into darkness turned the thoughts of the Atlanteans, until at last in his wrath arose from his Agwanti, the dweller, speaking the word, calling the power. Deep in earth's heart the sons of Amente heard, and hearing, directed the changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting, using the Logos, until that great fire changed its direction. So who is the Agwante? From what I can discern and what Dr. Dorriel says, there is no English equivalent to this word, though Dr. Dorriel hints that it means a state of detachment. And this is part of the mystical teaching. One has to become detached to the normal way of life, or should I say the more recognized way of life. The need for material things, to follow the path of our peers, as in to go to school, get a job, find a partner, get married, have kids, and so on. One gets attached to this way of living. I'm not saying one should not have marriage or kids, but they do distract one from this spiritual path, which is why in India the gurus and fakirs usually do not take on this kind of life until after they have taken part in the material world, had their family, watched their children grow up into mature people, and then the father figure has the time, the inclination to go and find God through his spiritual practice with no attachments, because he has set up his family to survive. But Thoth is warning us here. Here is the end of the Atlantean way of life, where people had grown away from their spiritual path, had instead followed their own selfish paths and fell into darkness. He will give us more details into this fall later in the tablets. And so the waters flowed on. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing earth's balance, until only the temple of light was left standing on the great mountain on Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. So some of the Atlanteans managed to escape the flooding, and this we've seen in many of the stories about Atlantis and of the beginnings of various civilizations in different countries and cultures. They came from the seas, which is probably the Atlanteans. Thoth continues, "Called to me then the master, saying, Gather ye together my people, take them by the arts ye have learned of far across the waters, until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians dwelling in caves of the desert. Follow there the plan that ye know of. Gathered I then my people, and entered the great ship of the master. Upward we rose into the morning. Dark beneath us lay the temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from earth until the time appointed was the great temple." Thoth gathers together the children of light under the master's instruction and escapes the inundation by taking to the air in his spaceship. Safe above it all, they watch Atlantis sink beneath the waves. And Thoth explains, "Fast we fled towards the sun of the morning, until beneath us lay the land of the children of Kem. Raging, they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. Then raised I my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone of the mountain. Then spoke I to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying we were children of the sun and its messengers. Cowed I then by my display of magic science, until at my feet they grovelled when I released them." Kem, what is this land? 'Tis the old word for the lands of Egypt, and at first, as we can see, Thoth and the others were not accepted by the locals. Thoth had to show them a display of his power with his magical staff. Many men have their staff. Moses had his that could turn into a snake. Merlin is often depicted with his staff of magic. Though Thoth is not a tyrant, he has to show the locals that he is powerful, and yet he comes in peace. So as I said, Kem is the old name for Egypt, and it means black, for when the soil there is fertile, it is a black colour. And Thoth continues about his time in Egypt. "Long dwelt we in the land of Kem, long and yet long again, until obeying the commands of the master, who while sleeping yet lives eternally, I sent from me the sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time wisdom might rise again in her children." So Thoth sends out the Atlanteans that he's brought with him to the other lands, and whilst he remained in Kem and Egypt, he decided to send out the teachers to the rest of the world. So what did he do there in Egypt? He says, "Long time dwelt I in the land of Kem, doing great works by the wisdom within me. Upward grew into the light of knowledge the children of Kem, watered by the rains of my wisdom. Blasted I then a path to Amente, so that I may retain my powers, living from age to age, a son of Atlantis, keeping the wisdom, preserving the records." So Thoth has the technology to blast away into the ground and to connect with the halls of Amente. This way he can continue to regenerate himself, and it is interesting that he uses the word sun as in the solar sun, rather than sun as in a child of Atlantis. He is working with the solar forces, which is what truth seekers are aiming for. The sun is the path. Many take the path to the moon, but there is a difference between the two. The moon is not necessarily a dark path, but it is a path that leads more to dreamlike, more occult, clairvoyant type of teachings, which can be useful. But the path to the sun is that which takes us to the divine source. Now, Thoth is often regarded as a moon god, and this is because he learnt the path of the moon as well as the path of the sun. And as you might know of, many magicians do that. They look at both the left hand and the right hand path. They learn the lunar path and the solar path. And I'm not saying that the lunar path is necessarily the dark path. It's not. But it can lead to the dark occult arts. And I wanted to say that the sun, of course, is the bestower of the light. The moon has no light, but it collects the sunlight, which is how we have the moon cycle of new moon, no sun passing on to it. And as the sun and the moon come into line with each other over the earth, and as the sun goes down to light the other part of the world, the moon's coming up on the other side of the world and is reflecting the sun's light onto us as it goes through its cycle, its 28 days. And also, of course, we've got to remember that the sun is the source of all wisdom. It is the illumination, the enlightenment, and that's what we're attaining to get to. So let's continue with Thoth and his time on Egypt. Great grew the sons of Chem, conquering the people around them, growing slowly upwards in soul force. Now for a time I go from among them into the halls of Amente, deep into the halls of the earth, before the laws of the powers, face to face once again with the dweller. And we'll be continuing who these people are in further tablets. So Thoth has passed on words of wisdom to the locals to help them develop so that they can follow the right path. But he is writing these tablets because he must return to Amente to regenerate. And he thinks that in these times, these current times, remember these books were found in the 1900s, these books are needed now more than ever as the dark forces try to take out the spiritual light warriors. So where is his entrance to Amente in Egypt that he created? He tells us, but does not exactly give coordinates. He says, raised I high over the entrance a doorway, a gateway leading down to Amente. Few there would be with courage to dare. Few passed the portal to dark Amente. Raised over the passage I a mighty pyramid, using the power that overcomes the earth force, gravity. Deep and yet deeper placed I a false house or chamber. From it carved I a circular passage, reaching almost to the great summit. There in the apex set I the crystal, sending the ray into the time-space, drawing the force from out of the ether, concentrating upon the gateway to Amente. Crystal power. Are you drawn to crystals, quartz and such like? Are you attuned to the stones of the earth? Crystals need some explaining and still need some explaining in this modern world. They are used in technology, but in the ancient days, they were used in a different way to how they are used today. Crystals are still not fully understood by the scientists and technicians of this modern world, but in the times of Atlantis, they were used in a different way. Their full potential was understood by the Atlanteans. And if we can work with crystals, we will begin to understand what crystals can do with us and how we can work with them. Thoth continues about building his way down to Amente. And we need this, we need to learn about the clues he's given us in case we can find our way to the halls of Amente. If you become a spiritual warrior, you might become an initiate and be called to come there. So Thoth says, other chambers I built and left vacant to all seeming, yet hidden within them are the keys to Amente. He who in courage would dare the dark realms, let him be purified first by long fasting. Lie in the sarcophagus of stone in my chamber. Then to reveal I to him the great mysteries, soon shall he follow to where I shall meet him. Even in the darkness of earth shall I meet him, I, Thoth, Lord of wisdom, meet him and hold him and dwell with him always. We can meet Thoth if we crack the code, discover the keys. We can work at this and discover the secrets and thus make that meeting with Thoth in the great halls that he has created. He awaits us there. Interesting that there is a sarcophagus of stone in the great pyramid. And if one lies down in it, call out to Thoth. He continues, built I the great pyramid, patterned after the pyramid of earth force, burning eternally so that it too might remain through the ages. In it I built my knowledge of magic science so that it might be here when again I return from Amente. I, while I sleep in the halls of Amente, my soul roaming free will incarnate, dwell among men in this form or another. Now remember, Thoth is the Egyptian name. In Greece, he's called Hermes, and we all know of Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice-born. Thoth keeps coming back. So off to Egypt we go, to the pyramid, the only remaining wonder of the world. But it doesn't just mean getting on a plane and flying there. There are some other things we have to do first. We have to be in the right mind, have contact and control of our emotions, be physically developed for this travail. This is not a trip for an ordinary person. This is for a developed person, one who's been through the training and passed the tests to become a spiritual warrior. Read the Emerald Tablets with me and we'll learn how to become like that. But Thoth says before he goes, he wants to leave us with some wise words. But they are to be secret only for those who are worthy, who feel the call, which you guys must be feeling if you are here today at this course. Thoth tells us, emissary on earth am I of the dweller, fulfilling his commands so man might be lifted. Now return I to the halls of Amente, leaving behind me some of my wisdom. Preserve ye and keep ye the command of the dweller. Lift ever upward your eyes towards the light. Surely in time ye are one with the Master. Surely by right ye are one with the Master. Surely by right you are one with the All. Now I depart from ye. Know my commandments. Keep them and be them. And I will be with you, helping and guiding you into the light. Now before me opens the portal, go I down into the darkness of night. End of Tablet 1. So here we go for Emerald Tablet 2, which is the halls of Amente. Deep in the earth's heart lie the halls of Amente, far beneath the islands of sunken Atlantis, halls of the dead and halls of the living, bathed in the fire of the infinite All. Far in a past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light look down on the world, see the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. Knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. Down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of men as their own. The masters of everything said, after their forming, we are they who are formed from the space dust, partaking of life from the infinite All, living in the world as children of men, like and yet unlike the children of men. So what is this bondage? It is the darkness from beyond. What we are aware of is that there is a duality, the dark versus the light. Humanity is held to bondage, lost a spiritual connection with the divine. Humanity has fallen away from the great connection and has instead been infiltrated by the dark forces. And these dark forces are what have put us into the bondage that keeps us connected to this planet. It has us caught up in the reincarnation cycle so that we do not return to the divine, but come back here again and again and again. But there is hope. There are brothers who watch over us, and they can be accessed, as explained in Tablet 1, if we wish to get to know them. So Thoth writes, then for a dwelling place far beneath the earth crust, blasted great spaces they by their power, spaces apart from the children of men, surrounded them by forces and power, shielded from harm they the halls of the dead. Side by side then placed they other spaces, filled them with life and with light from above, builded they then the halls of Amente, that they might dwell eternally there, living with life to eternity's end. 32 were their children, sons of light who had come among men, seeking to free from the bondage of darkness those who were bound by the force from beyond. Now, avatars came down They came down from the children of light, and they created these halls of the dead. And the halls of Amente is where the children of light dwell, and it's below the earth's crust. And there are 32 sons of light who await us to find them. Quite a magic number, 32. The 33 is even more magical. So who will guide us on to the next stage of our evolution? Why do they not just appear and guide all of humanity? Well, first off, there's free will. And free will has been given to every human being on this planet, free will to do what they want. And if these avatars, these laws suddenly turned up and started telling us what to do, then we've lost our free will, and people kind of begrudge being told what to do. And that's why on this path, one has to want to do it. And most people who walk this earth prefer to remain ignorant of this kind of teaching. They do not have the need, the desire to go further with this development. As I said earlier, one needs to want to do it, to be a seeker. And it's the seekers that the avatars are looking for. So Thoth continues talking about the halls of life. Deep in the halls of life grew a flower, flaming, expanding, drawing back with the night. Placed in the centre, a ray of great potence, life-giving, light-giving, filling with power all who came near it. Placed they around it thrones, 32, places for each of the children of light, placed so that they were bathed in the radiance, filled with the life from the eternal light. There, time after time, placed they their first bodies, so that they might be filled with the spirit of life. And I'm going to show you now a picture of the flower of life. It's something you can draw too. It's something very good to ponder upon. So as you can see, if you use the geometrical way of art, you can make these drawings yourself. And it's quite good to be doing this. It's quite a meditative experience to do. So the flower of life is sometimes known as the tree of life, and it is spoken about in all religions, especially in esoteric traditions. The tree or flower of life that radiates forth life. It gives us the knowledge and the wisdom. The flower of life starts with one circle and then expands out. The same pattern moving out but still connected, explaining that everything comes from the one source. The cycle of life begins at the divine and continues out further and further, and this cycle can be found in everything. All life, all law comes from this flower of life, but it can, like all flowers, droop and sag, or it can blossom into a beautiful flower if nurtured correctly. You don't want it to fade. So by doing this work and following this path, we can attain to blossom into a flower and become like the sun. So Thoth writes, 100 years out of each 1,000 must the life-giving light flame forth on their bodies, quickening, awakening the spirit of life. So every 1,000 years, Thoth has to go back down for 100 years to meditate and regenerate. And he writes, there in the circle from aeon to aeon sit the great masters, living a life not known among men. There in the halls of life they lie sleeping. Free flows their soul through the bodies of men. Time after time, while their bodies lie sleeping, incarnate they in the bodies of men, teaching and guiding onward and upward, out of the darkness into the light. There in the hall of life, filled with their wisdom, known not to the races of man, living forever beneath the cold fire of life, sit the children of light. Times there are when they awaken, come from the depths to be lights among men, infinite they among finite. And we are the finite. We don't become infinite unless we work on ourselves and break these bondages to the darkness and break the cycle of reincarnation. So Thoth says, he who by progress has grown from the darkness, lifted himself from the night into light. Free is he made of the halls of Amente, free of the flower of light and of life. Guided he then by wisdom and knowledge, passes from man to the master of life. There he may dwell as one with the masters, free from the bonds of the darkness of night. So once again, we are being instructed to continue our spiritual progression along the path towards the light, not fall into the downward spiral of the darkness, caught up in material gain, selfishness, egoistic ways, an uncaring lifestyle where one thinks only of oneself. You know, to do this work, you have to be mature enough to take on the responsibility for your actions. You know, do you still lay blame at other people's feet when things go wrong, or are you aware of, you know, what you are responsible for, your own life? And as they say in the superhero comics, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. Well, that's what's going to come with this kind of work. The 32 sons of light have a throne there, and they are sat in light, bathing in radiance, and this radiance is the spirit of life. They, being the great avatars, they can intake this spirit of life, the radiance of it, and we too will be able to, if we can develop ourselves, our bodies, our mind, emotions, and take control of ourselves, be mature enough. These avatars, when they come out of this hall, they take a body of man and put forward their wisdom. They become the lights among the men. And Thoth continues, seated within the flower of radiance sits 7 lords from the space-time above us. And we'll continue about space-time in the next tablet. So helping and guiding through infinite wisdom the pathway through time of the children of men. Mighty and strange they vowed with their power, silent, all-knowing, drawing the life force, different yet one with the children of men. Aye, different and yet one with the children of light. Custodians and watchers of the force of man's bondage, ready to loose when the light has been reached. First and most mighty sits the vowed presence, Lord of Lords, the infant 9. Over the others from each cosmic cycle, weighing and watching the progress of men. Ready to loose upon one the spiritual teaching. You started out as a novice, the fool in the tarot path. You're now becoming the magician and want to learn more. You are going from the stage of novice to intermediate to master of this way, but you have to be worthy. As Thoth says, under he sit the laws of the cycles, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, each with his mission, each with his power, guiding, directing the destiny of man. There sit they, mighty and potent, free of all time and space, not of this world, they yet akin to it. Elder brothers, they of the children of men, judging and weighing they with their wisdom, watching the progress, light among men. Now we'll cover more about the numbers in another tablet. Thoth writes, there before them was I led by the dweller, watched him blend with one from above. Then from he came forth a voice, saying, great art thou, Thoth, among children of men, free henceforth of the halls of Amente, master of life among children of men, taste not of death, except as thou will it. Drink thou of life to eternity's end. Henceforth forever is life thine for the taking. Henceforth is death at the call of thy hand. Dwell here or leave here when thou desireth, free as Amente to the Son of Man. Again, we have sun as in solar sun. It is the solar path we desire to rise to. And this path is an ongoing path. Though the sun is our destination, where we will become sun kings, just like Jesus, Apollo, Monkey King from Journey to the West. So we've got a bit of monkey magic. Shamash from the Sumerian times, to name just a few of the sun kings. Thoth writes, take thou up life in what form thy desireth, child of the light that has grown among men. Choose thou thy work, for all souls must labour, never be free from the pathway of light. One step thou hast gained on the long pathway upward. Infinite now is the mountain of light. Each step thou taketh but heightens the mountain. All of thy progress but lengthens the goal. Approach ye, ever the infinite wisdom. Ever before thee recedes the goal. Free are you made now at the halls of Amente to walk hand in hand with the lords of the world, one in one purpose, working together, bringers of light to the children of men. So following this path and passing the initiation, becoming a master means that one escapes the bondage of the dark forces and one walks with the gods. Now this bondage is happening now to everyone. We are already tied up in the bondage. We want to free ourselves from it. And Thoth writes, Then from his throne came one of the masters, taking my hand and leading me onward through all the halls of the deep hidden land. Led he me through the halls of Amente, showing the mysteries that are known not to man. Through the dark passage downward he led me into the hall where sits the dark death. Vast as space lay the great hall before me, walled by darkness but yet filled with light. Before me arose a great throne of darkness, bowed on it seated a figure of night. Darker than darkness sat the great figure, dark with a darkness not of the night. Before it then paused the master, speaking the word that brings about life, saying, O master of darkness, guide of the way from life unto life, before thee I bring a son of the morning. Touch him not ever with the power of night, call not his flame to the darkness of night. Know him and see him, one of our brothers, lifted from darkness into the light. Release thou his flame from its bondage, free, let it flame through the darkness of night. So Thoth is released from the life and death cycle. He becomes immortal, but his body and soul needs to return to the halls of Amente every 1,000 years and stay there for 100 years to regenerate. And Thoth writes, Raised then the hand of the figure, forth came a flame that grew clear and bright, rolled back swiftly the curtain of darkness, unveiled the hall from the darkness of night. Then grew in the great space before me, flame after flame from the veil of the night. Uncounted millions leaped they before me, some flaming forth as flowers of fire. Others there were that shed a dim radiance, glowing but faintly from out of the night. Some there were that faded swiftly, others that grew from a small spark of light, each surrounded by its dim veil of darkness, yet flaming with the light that could never be quenched. Coming and going like fireflies in springtime, filled they this space with light and with life. So the vow is discussed here, the vow that separates the material world from the divine, the spiritual world from the mundane, the world of the dead from the world of the living. Usually called the vow of Isis, it is discussed in the ancient traditions as being the vow that we need to lift, the vow that can be removed if one studies the esoteric paths and learns the ways to lift it. Thoth continues, Then spoke a voice mighty and solemn, saying, These are lights that are souls among men, and growing and fading, existing forever, changing yet living through death into life. When they have bloomed into flower, reached the zenith of growth in their life, swiftly then send I my veil of darkness, shrouding and changing to new forms of life. Steadily upward throughout the ages, growing, expanding into yet greater flame, lighting the darkness with yet greater power, quenched yet unquenched by the veil of the night. So grows the soul of man, ever upward, quenched yet unquenched by the darkness of night. I, death, come, and yet I remain not, for life eternal exists in the all. Only an obstacle, I, in the pathway, quick to be conquered by the infinite light. Awaken, O flame that burns ever inward, flame forth and conquer the veil of the night. Then in the midst of the flames and the darkness grew there one that drove forth the night, flaming, expanding ever brighter, until at last was nothing but light. Then spoke my guide, the voice of the master, See your own soul as it grows. See your own soul as it grows in the light. Free now forever from the Lord of the night. Forward he led me through great many spaces filled with the mysteries of the children of light, mysteries that man may never yet know of until he too is a son of the light. Backward then he led me into the light of the hall of the light. And so Thoth's being guided by the dweller, and he's going to learn how to tread this path and free himself. He's offered the power and the wisdom. And he tells us that all souls must labor, but what is it that you want to do? What is your mission? Do you want to become one of the children of light, or stay tied to the bondage of the dark forces? Are you heading for infinite wisdom? What will you do with it? Could you become a teacher of the light? So now we come to Emerald Tablet 3, the key of wisdom. I shall begin. I, Thoth the Atlantean, give of my wisdom, give of my knowledge, give of my power. Freely I give to the children of men. Give that they too might have wisdom to shine through the world from the veil of the night. Wisdom is power, and power is wisdom, one with each other, perfecting the whole. Be thou not proud, O man, in thy wisdom. Discourse with the ignorant as well as the wise. If one comes to thee full of knowledge, listen and heed, for wisdom is all. Keep thou not silent when evil is spoken, for truth like the sunlight shines above all. He who oversteppeth the law shall be punished, for only through law comes the freedom of men. Cause thou not fear, for fear is a bondage, a fetter that binds the darkness to men. So every person who walks this planet is worthy of your time, whether they are ignorant or wise. We can learn from every person. Every person is a human being, and all of them carry a burden. Wise and enlightened folk care for each other. They care for their soul, and each of us deserves time. And it's interesting that wisdom is power, and wisdom is often misused, because as I've said before, like with the Jedis in the Star Wars movies, it's a force, and the force can be used for good or bad, and that is the same for wisdom. And knowledge can be used for good or bad, and we want to try and use it for the right thing, for the goodness. So we'll continue with the tablet. Follow thine heart during thy lifetime. Do thou more than is commanded of thee. When thou hast gained riches, follow thine own heart. For all these are of no avail if thine heart be weary. And it is true, your heart has to be into this. Your heart has to be into everything that you're doing if you really want to do it. We feel weary when we're having to be forced to do something that our heart's not in it. It's very important to want to do this and to do everything in your life. When you're doing the washing up, concentrate on doing the washing up. When you're going forth to go to work, travel with concern that you're going to do that job, to do that work, and so on. Put effort into all of your life. I'll continue with the tablets. Diminish thou not the time of following thine heart. It is abhorred of the soul. They that are guided go not astray, but they that are lost cannot find a straight path. And as you know, there's many people lost in this world. They don't know what to do with themselves. They've got things coming in from everywhere. We've got, our work, our family life, our friends, everyone, our peers, putting on us. And we have to find out what it is we want. And I'm not saying be selfish. Obviously, we've just said in the previous paragraph how everybody needs our attention and we should give attention to them. But at the same time, we must work upon ourselves. And Thoth continues with, if thou go among men, make for thyself love, the beginning and end of the heart. And it is an interesting concept. I know many people find it difficult to draw love out and put it on everything. You look with a loving heart upon everything that happens before you, a loving heart on every person in front of you, a loving heart on every animal that's before you. Even when people are being cruel, horrible, nasty, deep down, they've got a past that has turned them into the person they've become. And we can fill them with love, which sometimes puts them a bit, catches them out because they don't know where it's coming from. You don't have to sit there saying, I love you. But if you can send love from your heart out to that person, they will feel it. It will change the vibration in the atmosphere. And sometimes it does make them feel a bit on edge because they've realised something's happened, but it will be a calming effect that will come across. So I'll continue with Thoth. If one cometh unto thee for counsel, let him speak freely, that the thing for which he hath come to thee may be done. If he hesitates to open his heart to thee, it is because thou, the judge, doeth the wrong. And I'm going to just add here, that is when you're not putting forward the love. They can feel that, but they may not know what's going on. If you're sending someone a bad thought, they can feel it. If you're sending somebody a bad vibration, they can feel it, but they might not be attuned enough to know what it is or why. And I'll continue with Thoth. Repeat thou not extravagant speech, neither listen now to it, for it is the utterance of one not in equilibrium. Speak thou not of it, so that he before thee may know wisdom. And I want to add here that the golden rule applies in all religions. And do you know what the golden rule is? Well, it says, do unto others as you would have done to yourself, is one way of saying it. It's written in many philosophies and applies to all wisdom teachings. Do unto another as to what you would have done to yourself. So I'm going to go on with Thoth, which is going to be, this is what's written. Silence is of great profit, and abundance of speech profiteth nothing. Exalt not thine heart above the children of men, lest it be brought lower than the dust. If thou be great among men, be honoured for knowledge and gentleness. If thou seekest to know the nature of a friend, ask not his companion, but pass a time alone with him. Debate with him, testing his heart by his words and his bearing. And it's something that I've come across throughout my life, and I'm sure many of you have. People can't talk directly to the horse. They like to go round the houses to find out what's going on. They will go to other people to ask how you're feeling. And maybe you do that yourself, when really we should go directly to the person and speak to them. In some wisdom teachings, or as the mystic George Gurdjieff says, this is called mechanical talking when we talk of others, when we talk just for the sake of talking. You know, words should be used wisely. One should think about what one is saying rather than just letting words shoot out of one's mouth. When one is a spiritual warrior, one must have time to listen to others, those less aware than yourself, even if that person is talking nonsense, gossip, or about the latest soap story. Have patience with him or her, and then try to get them to talk on more spiritual matters. Find whether their soul needs awakening, because, and one should always remember this, people come from all walks of life to walk this spiritual path. It's not just for the educated, it's open to anyone who has the mind to think and a heart to feel and a need to know. And some people have the yearning, but don't know where to take it, where to go. And maybe you could be the person that will be their guide, that will help them on their path. And Thoth writes, that which goeth into the storehouse must come forth, and the things that are thine must be shared with a friend. You need to share the ancient wisdom. And some people may be too shy to tread the spiritual path. They may come from families or have friends who will perhaps ridicule them, or they may live in a nation that does not allow such thought. And they must be made aware that they are not alone, that there need to be a truth seeker, though it's not always an easy path. It is in fact very rarely an easy path, but they can go along on it. They must never give up. So Thoth writes, knowledge is regarded by the fool as ignorance, and the things that are profitable are to him hurtful. He liveth in death. It is therefore his food. The wise man lets his heart overflow, but keeps silent his mouth. O man, listen to the voice of wisdom, listen to the voice of light. Mysteries there are in the cosmos that unbowed fill the world with their light. Let he who would be free from the bonds of darkness first divine the material from the immaterial, the fire from the earth. For know ye that as earth descends to earth, so also fire ascends unto fire and becomes one with fire. He who knows the fire that is within himself shall ascend unto the eternal fire and dwell in it eternally. Fire, the inner fire, is the most potent of all force, for it overcometh all things and penetrates to all things of the earth. So fire is the spiritual flame. Stare into the flame of a candle and feel the effect it has. Some acquaint this passage to the awakening of the Kundalini, the fire that rises up from the bottom of the spine, flows along it and activates into the head, opening the third eye. Thoth writes, man supports himself only on that which resists, so earth must resist man, else he existeth not. All eyes do not see with the same vision, for to one an object appears of one form and colour, and to a different eye of another. So also the infinite fire, changing from colour to colour, is never the same from day to day. And this is to remind us that not everybody sees things in the same way as you do, or I do. Everyone sees things in their own way. And in the modern world, they're trying to teach us all to think the same, but we don't. We all have our own thoughts, our own feelings. What's happening within us is more important than what's happening outside when we're trying to develop ourselves. The cosmic mysteries, well, they're part of the universal law, not the law of governments, but the law that runs the universe, the true law. And this is what one attunes to when one becomes initiated into this path, to the cosmic law, the true law. And Thoth says, thus speak I, Thoth of my wisdom, for a man is a fire burning bright through the night, never is quenched in the veil of the darkness, never is quenched by the veil of the night. Into men's hearts I looked by my wisdom, found them not free from the bondage of strife. And this is true, isn't it? Most people are caught up with their desires, their needs. They're not looking at the spiritual way of life, they're looking at the secular way of life, getting their house, paying for the rent, which is all something we all have to do. I do understand that's a stress for everybody. But when you're looking with your spiritual eyes and using your heart, well, life seems different. And as Thoth says, one is free from the toils, thy fire, O my brother, lest it be buried in the shadow of night. Hark ye, O man, and listen to this wisdom. Where do name and form cease? Only in consciousness, invisible and infinite force of radiance bright. The forms that ye create by brightening thy vision are truly effects that follow thy cause. Man is a star bound to a body, until in the end he is freed through his strife. As Aleister Crowley once said, every man, every woman is a star. You're a star. Thoth writes, he who knows the commencement of all things, free is his star from the realm of night. Remember, O man, that all which exists is only another form of that which exists not. Everything that has being is passing into yet other being, and thou, thyself, are not an exception. Consider the law, for all is law. And we've got to remember here that he's talking about cosmic law, not the laws of the governments and the bylaws that our boroughs and our councils put upon us, but the law of life. So consider the law, for all is law. Seek not that which is not of the law, for such exists only in the illusions of the senses. Wisdom cometh to all her children, even as they cometh unto wisdom. And there's something about doing this spiritual kind of work that will make you start seeing the world in a different way. It'll be different for each person. And Thoth writes, all through the ages the light has been hidden. Awake, O man, and be wise. Deep in the mysteries of life have I travelled, seeking and searching for that which is hidden. List ye, O man, and be wise. So Thoth's constantly reminding us to listen. We've got to remember that the majority of folk in this world follow an exoteric path, and many are satisfied with that. They perhaps follow a religious tradition, and their belief takes them to their place of worship now and then, and that's usually enough for them. But we truth seekers follow an esoteric path. We go deeper than just going to the church or the mosque or the synagogue or wherever once a week. We want to understand what we are praying to. We want to know the deepest secrets that faith has to offer. We are on the search for divine wisdom. We'll go back to Thoth now, who says, far neath the earth crust in the halls of Amente, mysteries I saw that are hidden from men. Oft have I journeyed the deep hidden passage, looked on the light that is life among men. There, neath the flowers of life ever living, searched I the hearts and the secrets of men. Found I that man is but living in darkness, and light of the great fire is hidden within. So everybody has this internal flame, but it's whether well, it's a spark within us all, and we want to turn it into the flame. We want to make it grow. And Thoth writes, before the laws of hidden Amente learned I the wisdom I give unto men. Masters are they of the great secret wisdom brought from the future of infinity's end. 7 are they, the laws of Amente, overlords they of the children of morning, sons of the cycles, masters of wisdom, formed are not they as the children of men. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are the titles of the masters of men. Far from the future, formless yet forming, come they as teachers for the children of men. Live they forever, yet not of the living, bound not to life and yet free from death. Rule they forever with infinite wisdom, bound yet not bound to the dark halls of death. Now I want to remind everybody here that it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, this is open to all. And when Thoth wrote this, the word men covered humanity, meant men and women. Thoth writes, life they have in them, yet life that is not free, free from all of the laws of the all. Forth from them came forth the Logos, instruments they of the power over all. Vast is their consonance, yet hidden in smallness, formed by a forming, known yet unknown. Free holds the key of all hidden magic. Creator he of the halls of the dead, sending forth power, shrouding with darkness, binding the souls of the children of men. Sending the darkness, binding the soul force, director of negative to the children of men. 4 is he who looses the power. And we would say in this day and age, who loosens the power. So we have to wonder about the use of numbers here, not names, but numbers, which seem to be a set of titles. When I first read this, I was reminded of the Prisoner TV series, when the protagonist is given the number 6 as a designation for himself, and he cries out, I am not a number, I'm a human being. But these men, these masters of men, have numbers as their titles and specific roles to their duty to man. And to have that kind of power would mean one would have to be egoless. And for that, one must lose one's personality and one's name. At the moment, we truth seekers are still ego-driven, and we need our names to self-identify. So we'll carry on with the numbers and Thoth. Lord he of children of life to the children of men. Light is his body, flame is his countenance, freer of souls to the children of men. 5 is the master, the lord of all magic, key to the word that resounds among men. 6 is the lord of light, the hidden pathway, path of the souls of the children of men. 7 is he who is lord of the vastness, master of space and the key of the times. 8 is he who orders the progress, weighs and balances the journey of men. 9 is the father, vast he of consonants, forming and changing from out of the formless. Meditate on the symbols I give thee. Keys are they, though hidden from men. Now, meditation is an important part of this process. We've got to ponder on what we are learning, acknowledge the knowledge as it comes to us, and let it process within us. It is that time after the character who is following the major arcana sequence has become the priest and priestess and learnt the religious ways, has moved into the kingly ways of the emperor and the empress, and has been taught by the hierophant. Now that person has become the hermit and retreat to take it all in. Meditation leads to a clearing of one's mind and one's heart, and it allows the teachings to settle within so that one can ruminate on them and let them filter into one. And Thoth continues, reach ever upward, O soul of the morning, turn thy thoughts upward to light and to life. Find in the keys of the numbers I bring thee, light on the pathway from life unto life. Seek ye with wisdom, turn thy thoughts inward. Close not thy mind to the flower of light. Place in thy body a thought-formed picture. Think of the numbers that lead thee to life. Clear is the pathway to he who has wisdom. So be the Jedi that you want to be. Don't let fear stop you. As the wise Jedi Master Yoda once said, fear leads to the dark side. People fear the unknown, and most folk, well, they avoid the unknown by living the same old life, a repetitive, regular routine that rarely lets them down, and people feel safe in that. But truth seekers recognise that stuff happens that breaks routine. Anything could happen and could disrupt the apple cart at any time. Truth seekers are trained to always expect the unexpected. Don't let fear stop you doing what you want to do. Face the fear. Usually what you are fearful of turns out to be not that bad after all. As Thoth says, open the door to the kingdom of light. Pour forth thy flame as a son of the morning. Shut out the darkness and live in the day. Take thee, O man, as part of thy being, the seven who are but are not as they seem. Open, O man, have I my wisdom. Follow the path in the way I have led. Master of wisdom, son of the morning light, and life to the children of men. And as I warned you before, the dark forces don't like people finding the light path and will come and try and trick you. They will send temptations. They will fill your mind with all kinds of imaginations that are of the dark side to try and rock you off this path, to knock you off this path. But we shall go into that in further tablets.